The ocean swallowed $50 million in less than 30 seconds. The towering offshore oil rig shuddered, alarms screamed across the steel decks, pumps fell silent, and thousands of workers watched in helpless disbelief as the massive structure slowly died beneath the blazing afternoon sun. Helicopters circled overhead, engineers panicked, executives argued, and every passing minute burned away another fortune. Then, from the supply vessel below, a weathered single father carrying an old toolbox quietly stepped forward, asking for just 9 minutes. No one believed him. Before you continue this unforgettable journey, if you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances can change lives, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing stories that inspire hearts around the world. Celia Hartwell had spent 15 years proving that brilliance belonged in boardrooms regardless of age or expectations. At only 38, she had become the youngest chief executive in her company's history after rebuilding failing operations across 3 continents. Financial magazines celebrated her confidence, investors admired her fearless decisions, and competitors quietly feared her relentless discipline. Yet none of those accomplishments mattered as she stood frozen on the command deck of the Atlas Horizon platform, watching production collapse before her eyes. Every indicator on the control wall glowed crimson. Engineers who had designed the system looked completely defeated. Every failed restart drained another $1 million while shareholders watched the crisis unfold through emergency reports. For the first time in years, Celia felt powerless. The shutdown had begun with what appeared to be a harmless vibration in one of the pressure stabilization units. Within minutes, automated safety systems triggered a complete production stop. Every attempt to restart the platform caused another chain of protective failures. Experts connected from Houston, Aberdeen, and Stavanger offered theories, but each solution only deepened the problem. The platform had become a silent monument in the middle of the ocean, surrounded by endless blue water and endless uncertainty beneath the bright afternoon sky. Among the dozens of contractors waiting aboard the nearby maintenance vessel was Rowan Mercer. Most people barely noticed him. His work boots were scarred from years of honest labor. His faded coveralls carried old stains that no amount of washing could remove. In one hand he carried a battered metal toolbox older than many of the engineers surrounding him. Around his neck hung a simple photograph inside a clear plastic sleeve. It showed him smiling beside his 8-year-old daughter, Eliza, whose bright eyes somehow made every difficult day feel worthwhile. Rowan's life had once looked very different. Years earlier he had been one of the industry's most respected field engineers, designing emergency bypass systems that saved companies millions during offshore failures. Then tragedy struck. His wife, Meredith, lost her battle with an aggressive illness shortly after Eliza's birth. Overnight Rowan became both mother and father. Promotions suddenly mattered less than bedtime stories, school lunches, scraped knees, and making sure his little girl never felt alone. He walked away from executive opportunities, accepting contract maintenance jobs that allowed him to spend more time at home, even if they paid a fraction of what he once earned. Many people misunderstood his choice. They assumed he had failed professionally. They never realized he had simply chosen love over prestige. As panic spread across the platform, Rowan quietly studied the emergency reports displayed on a technician's tablet. He listened without interrupting while senior specialists debated complicated software failures and mechanical breakdowns. Then he noticed something almost invisibly, a tiny sequence buried inside the shutdown log that reminded him of a design flaw he had encountered nearly 12 years earlier during another offshore project. He approached a supervisor with respectful confidence. Few paid attention until the supervisor reluctantly brought him before Celia. She looked exhausted. Salt spray mixed with stress across her face as she stared at another failed diagnostic report. Rowan introduced himself simply as a maintenance contractor and asked permission to inspect one valve cluster that no one else seemed concerned about. Several executives exchanged impatient looks. One even laughed softly, unable to believe that someone carrying an old toolbox thought he had found what dozens of elite engineers had missed. Celia almost dismissed him. Everything about the situation demanded trust in prestigious experts, not an unknown contractor. yet something about Rowan's calm expression felt different. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't promising miracles. He simply looked like a man who understood machines the way musicians understand melodies. She nodded. 9 minutes, that was all he requested. The countdown began. Instead of rushing toward the computerized control room, Rowan walked directly across the sunlit steel deck toward an isolated maintenance chamber overlooking the sparkling sea. Curious engineers followed at a distance. He ignored expensive diagnostic equipment and instead placed his hand against a thick hydraulic pipe, closing his eyes for several seconds. People whispered that he must be guessing, that he wasn't, that he was listening. Years of experience had taught him that machinery often spoke before instruments did. He opened one inspection panel, then another, finally reaching a pressure balancing assembly hidden behind several layers of shielding. Inside, a tiny mechanical latch had locked itself into an impossible position after receiving conflicting electronic commands. Every computerized restart kept forcing the same failure because the physical mechanism never truly reset. The solution wasn't expensive. It wasn't complicated. It simply required someone who understood both the engineering drawings and the personality of aging equipment, using nothing more than a custom wrench from his worn toolbox and a carefully measured adjustment. Rowan released the seized mechanism without damaging surrounding components. He signaled the control room, restart. For several endless seconds nothing happened, then one indicator turned green, another followed, massive pumps roared back to life, pressure stabilized, production resumed. Across the platform, hundreds of workers erupted into cheers loud enough to echo across the open ocean. Helicopter crews watched in disbelief. Executives who had prepared for catastrophic losses stood speechless as $50 million in daily operations returned almost instantly. Exactly 9 minutes after Rowan had begun, the Atlas Horizon platform was alive again. Celia stared through the observation window as sunlight reflected across the water surrounding the now thriving rig. She wasn't amazed only because the platform had restarted. She was amazed because someone everyone had overlooked had quietly solved what the world's most celebrated experts could not. For the first time that day, she smiled. News spread rapidly through the company. Financial disaster had transformed into one of the greatest operational recoveries in recent memory. Reporters praised sophisticated emergency management. Investors congratulated executive leadership. Almost no one mentioned Rowan. That he slipped back toward the supply vessel, ready to finish paperwork before catching the afternoon ferry home to attend Eliza's school science exhibition. To him, keeping his promise to his daughter mattered more than unexpected recognition. Celia noticed. She stopped him before he boarded. She asked why someone with his extraordinary knowledge worked ordinary maintenance contracts. Rowan answered honestly without seeking sympathy. Raising a daughter alone had changed every priority in his life. He never regretted stepping away from prestigious careers because every birthday, every school recital, every ordinary afternoon spent together had been worth more than titles. His quiet sincerity unsettled Celia in ways financial reports never could. She had built an empire by sacrificing weekends, relationships, and countless personal dreams. Success had filled newspapers but left her personal life strangely empty. Watching Rowan speak proudly about packed lunches and homework assignments made her question whether she had measured achievement correctly. Several weeks later, Celia requested Rowan's complete employment history. What she discovered shocked her. Many of the safety systems protecting Atlas Horizon were improvements based directly upon patents Rowan had helped develop years earlier. Internal restructuring after a corporate merger had quietly erased his contributions while rewarding executives who barely understood his innovations. History had forgotten him. The company had benefited anyway. Instead of becoming angry, Rowan had simply continued working with humility wherever honest work could support his daughter. Celia couldn't accept that injustice. She initiated an independent review of archived engineering records stretching back over a decade. The investigation uncovered numerous overlooked contributions by technicians, mechanics, welders, and field engineers whose practical knowledge had repeatedly saved enormous projects while senior leadership accepted public praise. Company culture had rewarded visibility instead of integrity. Celia decided that had to change. She announced a complete transformation of recognition policies. Every innovation would now carry the names of everyone who genuinely contributed regardless of rank. Apprentices, contractors, mechanics, and maintenance workers would receive equal consideration beside executives and consultants. Many board members resisted. they argued tradition mattered. Celia answered that truth mattered more. Her decision reshaped the organization. Months later, Rowan reluctantly accepted a newly created position mentoring young engineers, allowing flexible hours that never interfered with his responsibilities as a father. Rather than placing him behind an executive desk, Celia insisted his office remain close to workshops where practical learning happened every day. He became famous for teaching one simple lesson: machines reveal their secrets only to people willing to listen patiently. That philosophy soon extended beyond engineering. Employees listened more carefully to each other, departments cooperated instead of competing. Accidents declined, innovation increased, morale reached historic highs. Meanwhile, Eliza often visited headquarters after school. Instead of feeling intimidated by enormous buildings and busy executives, she discovered adults who respected her father not because of his job title but because of his character. One afternoon, she handed Celia a handwritten thank you card decorated with uneven hearts and bright blue waves. Inside she wrote that her father smiled much more now and came home happier because someone finally believed in him. The simple words brought unexpected tears to Celia's eyes. She realized leadership wasn't measured by quarterly profits alone. Sometimes true leadership meant noticing the quiet people everyone else ignored. Years passed. Atlas Horizon became a celebrated example of technical excellence and compassionate leadership. Business schools studied the company's remarkable cultural transformation. Investors admired strong financial performance. Employees proudly remained with the organization for decades, yet visitors touring headquarters always paused before one particular display. Inside a glass case rested an old scratched toolbox. Beside it hung a photograph of Rowan and young Eliza. The inscription underneath contained no grand speeches. It simply explained that the greatest solutions often arrive wearing worn boots instead of polished shoes, and that every person deserves to be seen before they are judged. Executives from around the world read those words. Many left thinking less about engineering and more about humanity. As for Celia, she never forgot the afternoon when pride nearly prevented her from trusting an ordinary contractor. Whenever difficult decisions arose, she remembered the silent platform, the endless ocean shimmering beneath the afternoon sun, and the humble father who had restored far more than machinery in only 9 minutes. He had restarted compassion inside an entire company. Before this story comes to its close, leave a meaningful comment sharing a time when someone underestimated you or when an ordinary act of kindness changed your life forever. Your story may encourage someone who desperately needs hope today. The years eventually carried Eliza into adulthood. Inspired by everything she had witnessed, she studied engineering with the same curiosity her father had always shown. On the day she graduated, Rowan stood proudly in the front row while Celia applauded beside him, not as a celebrated chief executive and respected employee, but as lifelong friends whose lives had been forever changed by one extraordinary afternoon. Rowan's greatest achievement had never been restarting a $50 million oil rig. It had been raising a daughter who believed that humility could stand beside brilliance, that kindness could transform powerful people, and that true success was measured not by wealth but by the lives lifted along the way. As father and daughter walked into the bright afternoon sunlight together, both understood that the strongest foundations in the world were never built from steel or oil. They were built from trust, forgiveness, quiet courage, and hearts willing to give others a second chance. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May we all remember that behind every worn pair of work boots may stand a hero whose greatest strength is not extraordinary talent, but extraordinary kindness.